So in our previous session, we have seen the supplier model. Now we are going to discuss how to create a supplier here. Let's work with the supplier setup creation. Whenever we are working with the suppliers, let me open the notepad. We can go with Excel sheet. Creation. Whenever we want to work with the supplier, first we are supposed to verify the supplier setups. We are supposed to verify the supplier setups, nothing but supplier number generation we have to verify. Supplier numbers generation we have to verify. So first thing I'm going to mention here, supplier number generation. Supplier number generation. Okay, let's go for after supplier number. There will be a supplier lookups also. Nothing but list of values. If you want to go for update those supplier lookups, we can go for update. Then after that, we will be verifying supplier types. There are two different types of suppliers. We'll be talking about that. Then we will check the supplier approvals. We'll take separate session about the approvals. At this point of time, we'll make that auto approval, and then we will go for supplier creation. Supplier creation, then supplier address creation, supplier site creation, supplier site assignment to the view, then supplier contacts creation, and then we are going to close. So these are the setups we are going to perform it. Okay. So first we have to be an employee, and then you must be a buyer, and supplier role is required. These are the prerequisites. Go to setup and maintenance. So what are the prerequisites? Prerequisites to set up the supplier. So you must be an employee first. After that, you must be an agent, procurement agent. Then after that, you can go for add roles. Implementation roles we will be adding. What is the role required to work with the supplier? Supplier manager role is required. We need supplier manager role. Then we can start working with this. Okay. So first, I'm going to make these prerequisites. Then we'll start doing all these setups. So what we'll do is first we'll create an employee. Log into the applications, FSM environment, functional setup manager, procurement. Go to suppliers. You can see the setups here, supplier setups here. A lot of options are there. Whatever regularly we'll be using, that will work out here. Okay, so now we are talking about employee, manage users. Go to the task. I'm mentioning that he is procurement agent. I'm specifying first name as PRC, last name as agent. So let's hire employee here. Let's take legal employer is US1 legal entity and US1 business unit here. Save and close. In case if we are going to work with our own business unit, we can also go for create our own legal entity and business unit and start working with that. Okay. This is built-in legal employer and built-in legal entity. Now click done button. We'll see that our own business unit in the next level we are going to discuss when we are working with payables or procurement module. Now, once employee is ready, let's go to security console, tools menu, security console here. Add the roles, implementation roles and supplier manager role. Now go to users tab here, search for username. Let me reset the password. Password must contain at least one uppercase and one number. That's the requirement is generated by the system. So what I'll do is I'll go for set this. Let me go for add the roles here. I'm adding implementation roles. One is IT security manager. Another one is functional setup manager. It means application implementation consultant. Application implementation consultant role. Then we are going to add supplier manager. Supplier manager role we are going to use. Supplier manager role we are going to use. Let's log out and log into the applications. So two more things are pending. One is buyer setup. We are supposed to do the buyer setup agent. Let's go to procurement. Must be a buyer to go for create a supplier. If you want to create a supplier, you must be a buyer for your business unit. Select your business unit, whatever you are working. Let's say you are working for US1 business unit. Select your business unit. Select the employee name here. Default requisition business unit. We'll talk about that later when we are working with requisitions. And here agent access, all the documents, whatever we have discussed in procurement module will find here. But anyway, supplier is here. This is the option, enabled option here. You can go for create your own suppliers here. Go for save and close. That's it. And one more is data access. We forgot to provide data access for users. for which business unit you are going to create a supplier. That's what we are going to provide. So what is your username? Procurement agent. What is the role name? Supplier manager, business unit. And we are working with US1 business unit, right? Let's go for assign. Once the data access is done, we are supposed to run this LDAP process. Go to initial users and run this LDAP process here. It takes a couple of minutes time. Let's log out and log in. Now let's go to navigator, procurement. We can find suppliers. So before we go for suppliers, there are two types of suppliers we will find. Okay. One is spend authorized supplier. One is spend authorized supplier. So whenever we are creating suppliers, here we can find. Here, create supplier. Prospective and spend authorized supplier. Prospective supplier and spend authorized supplier. So what is the difference between these two supplier types? Prospective supplier is nothing but the supplier which you are going to have a just communication regarding the goods, price and other things. You are not going to buy the goods from them. Still they are not authorized. It means we are not yet approved to buy the material from them. Once they are authorized, then we can purchase. So if he is a prospective supplier, we will be sending the requirement to them and then we'll be receiving the quotations from them. It means negotiations will happen over here, but we are not going to purchase the goods from them. Once he becomes authorized, once the supplier becomes authorized, then we are going to purchase the goods. So if you create any supplier with prospective, then you can create a requisition, send RFQ, receive the quotations, but cannot purchase. If you are spend authorized supplier, then only you can go for purchase the goods from the suppliers. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with spend authorized supplier. So before that, I just wanted to check, is there any approval process is enabled for this supplier? Let's go to user menu, setup and maintenance. Go to procurement. Suppliers. You can find only one task initially and go to all tasks. You can find all the tasks related for the suppliers. First option, specify supplier numbering. It means supplier number generation, from which number you would like to start. This will be discussing with the client and we'll set the number here. And we'll go for set up the number here. Then we are going to have supplier type. Lookups we are going to have. Supplier type lookup. So lookup is nothing but just providing list of values. You are just trying to add some value to the list. If there are some values we are trying to hide. So we'll be having separate session about the lookups, value sets, and flux fields. So there is a supplier type and contractor like this. We'll talk about that later. Supplier bank account comes later. Now, what we wanted to do is, when I try to create spend authorized supplier, will it expect any approvals or not? If it is expecting some approvals, we are going to disable it first. Later, we'll see how the approvals can be configured for suppliers. Okay. So let's search for the supplier here, spend authorized supplier setup. Now this, you can see that the approvals are enabled here. We can check the rule. What rule is there? There is only one rule we have. And that rule also is always applying, no conditions. The rule applied always. And approval is required. It is asking, yes, we need approvals. But what I'm trying to do is, I'm going to make it as automatic. Approved. Go for save and close. Deploy it. Click done button here. Now we'll see how to create a supplier. Let's go for our application here, supplier portal. First, we are going to create a supplier. Go to suppliers work area. Go to task list here. Create supplier. Now we are going to enter the supplier name here. So let me go for take the supplier name as Nokia. Supplier and business relationship spend authorized, and it's a corporation. Create a supplier. So whenever we go for create a supplier, system automatically generate the supplier number. And if we would like to configure some tax country, registration number, other information, we can go for specify over here. That's what we are going to call it as supplier information. Here it is. So once we create a supplier, then we will go for create the supplier address. That's our next level. Supplier address we have to create. So now we mentioned supplier, here it is. So if we click create button, it will automatically go for creation of the supplier. Now we can find supplier number here, and this is our supplier profile. You can find general information, supplier number, when it is created, how you created supplier, any attachments about the supplier information, general business classification. Is he one-time supplier or he is a regular? Okay. So this all information will be specified at supplier profile. Let's go to supplier address. One supplier can have either one address or multiple addresses. I'm going to define here two addresses. One is US, New York. Another one is US, Chicago. Two addresses I'm going to create. Okay. So Nokia, New York address. This is all information so our client is supposed to provide. If there are some thousands of suppliers. We are supposed to upload the data. And this address will be using to send our RFQs as well as bidding documents. And also we'll be using for ordering the goods to the supplier's address. That's what we will be specifying. Save and create another address. So two addresses we have created successfully. Supplier addresses are created successfully here. So one supplier can have either one address or multiple addresses. So we'll be asking our client how many sites you have. For every site, there will be one address. Now supplier address is done. After that, we'll go for create a supplier site. Go for sites tab. Whenever we go for sites tab, you will be facing this problem. An address must exist before creating a site. So you just go for submit this process. It takes a couple of minutes time because we enabled approvals, auto approval, right? If approvals are not there, immediately it will be available. But now we can see that internal profile change request submitted. It contains some changes. It requires the approval, right? That's why it takes some time to get into that. Let's go to manage suppliers. And what's our supplier name? Nokia. Search. We can find that this icon. This icon is there means we are waiting for approval. Whether it is self-approval or management, that is the next level, but we are waiting for approval. It takes a couple of minutes. As at this point of time, we just configured, it's automatic. It will take a couple of minutes time to get into that. Where do we check that? Notifications will be verifying. Show all. We'll come to know the supplier is been approved automatically or not. Or in the search area itself, we can find out if you don't have this icon means indirectly your supplier has been approved successfully. If we look at our supplier details here, whenever we search for the supplier, we can find the information here that the notification is still pending. So what we can do is, if there is any approvals pending, what we can do, go to notifications here, go to show all option and created by me, then we'll come to know the notification we have received for supplier address. Okay. And here we can find out what's the approval process has been picked by the system. It's picked by parallel approval. It seems somebody has configured meanwhile, a parallel approval. First responder wins. Whoever respond first, okay, then it's automatically going to be accepted. Okay. So what we can do is we can take any of the employee. We'll take some employee here. Let me take this procurement manager, Malcolm Webster. Okay. So we need a username and password for that user. Go to security console because somebody has to approve it. Go to users. This is the user. He can go for approve. We need password. So let me reset the password for this user here. Now we'll go for login with this username and we'll go ahead with the approval process. This username Let me log out from the current user and log in with this user here. I'll go to notifications here. We'll come to know that here action is required for so-and-so supplier. I'm just going for approve. So now he has approved this particular requirement here. Now the supplier has been approved. Let's log in with our username, whatever user we have created, procurement agent, right? So let's go for procurement agent. You can also find that the notification saying that supplier has been approved. Now we can find here procurement suppliers. So payables module, procurement module, both are same. Supplier is common for both, either for payables or for procurement here. Now we can go to task list and go to manage suppliers here. And search for the supplier called here, not here. We'll come to know. See, we don't have the icon. It means the supplier has been created successfully. Now we are going to edit supplier. Go for edit here. And we got already supplier profile here. And then we will go to address. We can find multiple addresses here. We created 2 addresses, right? Here. And now I'm going to create a site. Let's go to supplier site and I'm going to create a supplier site here. So if we want to create a site, what we have to do is we need to choose the address. Supplier address, we have to choose here it is. Now it's going to ask, earlier it was telling that we don't have supplier address. Now it is showing that New York address. And I'm going to mention this New York site. And this purpose of this site. Do you want to use this supplier site in purchasing module? Yes, enable this. You want to use it in payables module? Yes, enable this checkbox. In case if there are multiple supplier sites, if you want to make this is a primary pay site, if there are multiple pay sites, if you want to make it as primary, then we can enable this checkbox. So primary pay, it will be this one. Primary pay, it will be this one. So I'm not going to make it as a primary pay. Just I'm going to enable. It can be used in purchasing module as well as it can be used in the pay module. Go for same. So what we have done now, we created supplier site, right? After supplier site creation, we are supposed to assign this supplier site to the business unit. We are supposed to assign this to the business unit. Go to site assignment. Here we can use this button, auto create assignments. What will happen when you click this button? The system will identify the current user, whoever is logged in. This user, whatever the business unit sees the agent, those business units will be selected automatically. If you want to manually go for restrict for a particular business unit, we can do that here. It is. We create auto create assignment. It's automatically assigned for the US1 business unit because he is working for US1 business unit. Save and close. Here it is. This is supplier site assignment. After completion of supplier site assignment to the business unit, then supplier contacts information will be entered. It means in case if I want to buy the goods from New York City, New York site, then whom I have to contact. Here supplier contact information will be specified. Let's say the sales manager is there. That person we are supposed to contact regarding any sales information or any quotation information we wanted to contact this person, then we need to maintain that information here. So let's say Nitin Kumar is a sales manager and we would like to have an email here. And go for, if you would like to provide the username and password for this particular employee, we can go for enable this checkbox, create user account. So that system will automatically create a user account for the supplier. It will automatically create a user account for the supplier. So that whenever we send a requirement to the supplier, supplier also can log into the Fusion applications and he can check what we have sent. That is what we call it as a supplier portal. Supplier portal. Okay. We'll be talking about that in the next level, how it will work, supplier portal here. Okay. So now I'm going to enable this checkbox, create a user account. Also go for save and close. This is how we will be configuring the supplier hierarchy. There is something called qualifications. In case if you would like to go for assess the supplier first, then finally confirm the qualifications, we will be using the supplier qualifications. Actually, the supplier qualifications comes in the sourcing module. In the sourcing module, we are going to use this. Not much in the procurement or payables module. We just need initial stage, this much of knowledge about the supplier. Later, we'll be talking about the supplier options, site level and supplier level. Lot of options will be doing that. Okay. So this is how we will be configuring the suppliers and how we can go for check the supplier approvals process. Thank you.